Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Tom Teague. Tom has spent more than 30 years in a traditional corporate career. He's led software development teams to support collaborating engineering communities within large organizations. Now, Tom has left this life behind. Tom now combines his practical experience perspective for building software systems with modern online marketing and sales skills to coach thought leaders a systematic way to create and deliver value for their communities using their online business systems. Tom is the author of the recently published book, Online Business Success for Thought Leaders. Tom, welcome to the Success Insight podcast.
Hi, Howard. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, I have to say, Tom, congratulations on your recently published book, Online Business Success for Thought Leaders. And really, for our listeners, in the spirit of the ultimate full disclosure, Tom and I are good friends, and we have been in each other's, let's just say, sandboxes for many years now. But what really is phenomenal is to see Tom take this very technical career he has had and really become, and especially now with the launch of this new book, really the guru when it comes to online marketing and sales skills, especially to create the online business. So Tom, once again, welcome to Success Insight, and thanks for taking time out of your busy day, no doubt, to chat with me and provide some insights to our audience.
Thank you, Howard. I'm really excited about this book. I think you've had a chance to peek into it a little bit because we've worked together for several years. So I'm really excited because finally we kind of have a how-to roadmap on how to go about building an online business.
You know, I really, as I was reading off this introduction, I had this flash, come through my head. Is like, oh my God, where was this when I was just starting out? Because I think, what was it, last Friday, which was I believe it was like the 12th, 9 years ago, I got laid off from my IT job. And I do want you, if you wouldn't mind, to share a little bit more of your background with our listeners so they kind of get a feel for who you are and type of work you've been doing. But I remember that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey as a coach 9 years ago. And I had no clue of what it took to build a business. And so as I'm listening to myself talk, and I guess I can do that, I'm thinking to myself, my God, where was this 9 years ago? So for the sake of delaying the inevitable, Tom, just before we kind of dive into the book, let's share a little bit with our listeners about your background.
I'm glad you shared that, Howard, because that's kind of my story too. I was bopping along in my corporate career. By the way, I basically built software systems. I was a software development leader. So I led teams of developers to build software systems. And mostly they were technical and engineering. But the same thing happened. It was like I was working for a relatively small company at the time, and their sales pipeline dried up. And so my job went away, and about 2/3 of the development team jobs went away at the same time. And yeah, it was like, okay, it's time to make a shift. And what's interesting about that was a few years before, I had gone through a lot of personal life transitions that were very painful and difficult to get through. And that sent me on a reading journey to learn more about spirituality. And I wrote a book because there's that literature on spirituality is so rich with ideas and very complicated. And one of the things I like to do is to try to distill complicated things down into simpler things. So I wrote this book, and then I realized I had no idea, how to let people know that I had written this book. And the same thing, I got interested in coaching, and I met Brenda Burchard in Experts Academy shortly after drafting my book. I got interested in coaching because I had been a software manager for a lot of years, and I had done a lot of informal mentoring. But I thought, well, if I'm going to be an author and a coach, kind of as a new career, what would that look like? So I took some coaching training, and same thing. It's like I had no idea how to tell people about my coaching program. So I went into, and I talk about this in the book, I went into what I call internet marketing grad school for about 5 years. And I invested, gosh, I hate to even say how much money, tens of thousands of dollars and thousands of hours, and attending all sorts of weekend workshops and online training. It's like trying to learn this stuff. And yeah, it was a long journey. And I thought, well, I've been on this journey long enough. I think I've learned enough that I could write a book. And it shouldn't take 5 or 6 years to get through this. I really do think people should be able to go through this sort of a transition in a year or two. It shouldn't take 5 or 6.
One thing that dawned on me, and you brought it up in the book, Brendan Burchard was one of the first who you and I would say is probably the internet marketing, coaching, entrepreneur gurus out there. I mean, I would put him up there with a Tony Robbins in a way.
Absolutely.
And the other names, and you kind of name drop them in one chapter of the book, and every one of them has their high ticket mastermind group, and you're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars. Did you find that you were getting just little tidbits of insight from those, or was it repeating? Because at some point, when you and I first met, and this was probably 2016, I think, or 17, this idea of this online business success was really getting some legs for you. We used to get together on these weekly calls every Monday, and it was almost like, the power of the mastermind, this group of people who are interested and have their goals and will help each other. But at what point did this information start to gel for you? Like there's something bigger here that I can help others not go down the same path I've gone down.
Well, actually, and I do talk about this a little later in the book, I was about 4 years into internet marketing grad school. All of the investments I made, all of the gurus or teachers that I studied with, they're all very good. And I learned different things. And the thing is that most people are teaching what they were best at. Brendan Burchard probably had the most broad reaching with Experts Academy, but Jeff Walker, for example, teaches about product launches, and that's pretty much his thing. Other teachers, like Mike Filsame and Mike Koenig, some of theirs, I learned about how to do webinars. Well, webinars is a marketing tactic. So the point is that people are teaching different tactics, and I couldn't figure out, okay, well, how do you string all this together and how do you build a business? Well, about 4 years in, now you need to know, I worked a career in corporate, and I was an operational manager. I never really got involved in marketing and sales. Well, in the first 4 years of internet marketing grad school, all the people I was learning from, they kind of blended marketing and sales processes into one thing. And when finally I met a sales coach who pointed out that marketing and sales are actually different. And he made the point that, you probably don't need to get a lot into online marketing until you have a business and you know how to do one-on-one selling. Then you can scale that up by adding online marketing and online sales. But really, when you're starting out, you need to start out simple with respect to technology and more relational, building relationships with your prospective clients and customers and learning how to do sales, and then scaling up later with the online marketing. That was a real nugget that, gosh, it took me so long to see that the truth of that. So I included that in my book. It's like, even though it says online business success for thought leaders, in chapter 6, I talk about start first with offline marketing and sales.
So let's talk about that in maybe a fictitious or semi-fictitious case study. So I went through coach training, got my master's degree, and I didn't know a thing about running my business or growing my business. I knew how to coach. I was good at it, but how to go out and get customers and how to let people know this is what I'm doing. I wasn't very good at it right away. So I would imagine there are still people out there who are graduating from coach training programs, and they are just as clueless today as I was way back when. So where do they start? How, is your book provide them the path to begin that journey?
Yes, it does. And I guess the other thing that I learned, and again, several people taught this, but I had things in the wrong order. I started out because I'm kind of technical background. I started diving into how do you do the online technology piece. Well, the first piece is really get clarity about your business and understand what I call a customer journey. And what you said about coaches getting coach training and then not knowing, because the coach training programs, many of them do not really teach how do you build a coaching business. So that's really what this book is about. It's about how do you build a business around coaching. And one of the things that I came to understand is even if coaching is your first love, in general, coaching programs are on the high end of services that you can offer in terms of pricing. So if you're trying to build a relationship with people, before they're going to want to spend a lot of money with you, you need to give them the opportunity to spend a little bit of money with you and give people a chance to interact with you. So, for example, well, like writing this book. The book's, it's a $20 product. It's not so expensive, right? So people can read this book and they can start getting to know me, or they can listen to the audiobook. I'm going to produce that too. They start getting to know me at a relatively low price point and then say, hey, what else do you have? So maybe I'll have an online course and it's a little bit more. It's not $20, but it's more. And then you just continually build relationships until not everybody, but a few people will eventually come into the higher price coaching programs. And so what I tell coaches is every coach needs a product. And by product, I mean it could be like a workshop. It doesn't have to be necessarily an online product, although, online products are nice because you can describe your your transformational methodology in a training sort of a way. And if people really want to apply it and work with you directly, then they'll want to get involved in your coaching program.
And for the coach, and they've come out of coach training. If I recall, before I graduated, my niece was going through college, and one of her senior projects was to build a website for me. And I still hear that to this day, especially new coaches or somebody starting a business. Oh, I got to go build this website. And they invest all this money and time and energy, and it quickly grinds to a halt because the platform changes. There's the upkeep to keep it running. And at the end of the day, they don't get any business either. I've been there. I've been there.
Me too.
How does the book help prevent that? I don't know, maybe it's a shiny object. Oh, I got to have a website. Da-da. How do we prevent, how are you helping your ideal client, who is the thought leaders? And those are coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs who have something to offer. How are you helping them navigate that dangerous pothole filled journey?
Yeah, I was told the same thing. Build a website, start with WordPress, you'll figure it out. That's a good place to start. And to be honest, I did that. And I don't know, I've met lots of people who've done that. It's basically a mistake. It's not the first thing to do. It is, however, a useful thing to do. Let's say you are doing one-on-one networking and you maybe exchange business cards, contact information. It's useful to have a fairly minimal website so that basically it's set up basically to drive people to call you and have a conversation. The problem is with websites in general, though, that are designed like that, is it still relies on the person you meet to call you. So what I say about networking is, it's like, yes, go ahead and network, get contact information. But where most people fall down on the networking is they don't follow up, and I'm guilty too.
Oh God, yes.
Most
Yes.
people I've talked to are guilty of not following up, but that is what you need to do. And the same thing with your website. It's like when you reach out to people and you say, hey, let's have a conversation, they're going to maybe want to check you out a little bit before they get on the phone with you. Having a little minimal website about your business, what problems you solve, how you help people, maybe a little bit about yourself and your credentials, just so people know your background. And then a way to contact you. Very simple. I call it basically it's a core website. There's 3 pages. It's your homepage, the about page, which is about you, and a contact page where they can send you an email message or call you or schedule an appointment, something like that.
Okay.
That's actually step 2, though. And later in the book, when I have like 10 sprints you can do, 10 mini projects, that's actually the second project.
Okay. It's probably a good time then, I think, to, perhaps segue. Let's start with the beginning and let's talk about the book, Online Business Success for Thought Leaders. And so all throughout your years, you're going through your own personal MBA program, master's program. Now you've assembled all these ideas and what concepts I need to share, what order they go in. So how is it presented? And to give somebody like me, the me 8 years ago or 10 years ago, however many years ago it was, to get started, how does that help that me or that newbie get started?
Basically, I set up a 4-part framework. The first part is clarifying your business strategy. So, like me, I was saying that the mistake I made was diving into the website and the technology and trying to figure all that stuff out. That's actually step 2. But step 1 is get really clear about your business. And I have 4 chapters in that part. And the first one talks about just websites in general, because that's where a lot of people want to start. It's like, well, make your website engaging. I talk about passive websites, or I also call them e-commerce designs, where it's kind of like people think, and we've been told for years, that your website is your online storefront, where it's all about you and what you're selling and stuff like that. That's a shift in perspective, really is. It isn't about you, it's about your prospective customer and what problems do they have that you can help them solve. So that's the first, is like shift your website around to it's really about the visitor who comes to your website. Then I go from there and I talk about, first of all, what is a business? Because me coming out of a corporate environment, I really hadn't thought about what are all the aspects of a business, and in particular, what does a thought leader business look like? So that's the next chapter. And then after that, I talk about actually 2 things. So the third and fourth chapters are, first of all, clarify about what is your business, and I talk about something I call the 8 M's, but basically there's a systematic way to think about mindset and motivation and money and methodology and there's several M's. From there, then, to build a customer journey. How do I meet people? How do I bring them along on a journey to eventually get to my coaching program? Then there's part 2. Part 2 is all about systems and selecting systems. And believe me, there's a lot of complexity there. But I just want to say, as I said a few minutes ago, the first thing is to get clear about the offline marketing and sales, what I call offline marketing and sales. It's really one-on-one without too much technology. And there is some technology to help you with that one-on-one marketing and sales process. And then the last thing then is the online marketing. And there's, oh my gosh, there's so many options and so many things to do. It really is overwhelming. And then I talk about streamlining your systems. It's like, okay, as a software manager, I can tell you from my corporate experience, the more systems you have, the harder your life is. So I advocate basically coming, to get as few systems as you can get by with and still gets the job done. Third part is then to talk about the creating the online assets. And it's basically, there's different things, web pages, emails, links, forms, there's several building blocks. So I talk about what the building blocks are in part 3. And then in part 4, I have like 10 sprints. Sprints is an agile software development term. Basically, they're just mini projects. And I have, what's the recommended order? So I have, the first one I mentioned is not the website. It's actually just sell a live workshop and take money, because the first thing to do is to bring money in. Then you can build your core website. Then you can build your lead magnet. Then you can build your online product and go and so forth. So I give you the right order to build your system.
Fantastic.
So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of the overview.
I'm thinking, Tom, and just let this stew around a little bit for you, but I think with your experience and having lived through this experience myself, having lived through it as well, and still struggling in certain areas, I think we could do a good service, for our listeners and other future listeners of this podcast by perhaps going a little bit deeper into this 4-step process for your online business success. So it seems to me we could easily come back and talk about the business strategy, because I think that was the major aha for me. And because I was trying to sell, hey, I'm a coach, I have a certification, and I wasn't thinking, and I do these assessments, but I was not thinking about who my ideal customer was and what problems and struggles they were facing. And once I started to get that, then things started to fall into place. And I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I will echo that. Once I got clear that that was the first thing to do, it made all the difference. And when I've been coaching people over the last 2 or 3 years, getting really clear about what is my business, how can I attract people that I really want to help, and I know that I can help. And being very clear about what your business is about, and not only for helping people, but it's also, as entrepreneurs, we want to do things that we're good at, we enjoy, we can make a contribution to people, and we can feel good about what we're doing with our career.
Yeah. And so let me make the ask. I guess when in sales, you actually have to ask for the business. Would you be open to coming back on the podcast and let's kind of dissect this in more detail, provide people some more value, and then give them a place to hopefully get to know more about you and your work.
Yeah, I would love that, Howard. Yeah, let's plan to do that. That'd be great.
Okay. In addition to this book, what ways are you going about promoting this book to potential interested readers, potential interested thought leaders? How are you going about that?
Basically, one way I would like to do, more interviews like this to help get the word out and help people get to know about me. I haven't been that active on social media, just to be honest about it, but I'm going to be ramping that up. And also, there's another concept in the book that I talk about, joint venture partners. So I'll be looking to find some joint venture partners to help me get the word out. Yeah, in essence, I'll be applying the principles in this book, and you'll see. We can maybe talk about this, but in one of the later episodes. But I'm going to talk about how to do a book launch. In addition to the book itself and all the content in the book, I want to let people know how a book launch is done also, and by doing it, and then and talking about it while I'm doing it.
Fantastic. Now, I am curious, again, for our listeners, Tom and I have known each other for a number of years, at least since about 2016, so about 5 years. What lessons or ahas have you made for yourself looking back on this journey? What's an aha or insight that you could share with our audience?
I would say, this is kind of the final note in my book. The final note in my book is titled Start. And looking back over my experience, I will just say, and this is the nature of being an engineer too, but if you're an analytical sort of a person, I was in the learning and analyzing and analyzing and learning and analyzing and learning, but I wasn't doing. So one of the things I think is really valuable about this book is I've given a roadmap, and so you actually can start, and you can actually have something working in a matter of a few weeks or a month or two, and you can start building from there. And I think one of the things I've really learned is I've learned most by actually doing. And Howard, do you remember, it was, I don't know, when was it, about 3 years ago, when I did my first workshop and you came and helped me with that workshop? I just, at some point I made that decision. Okay, I think I know enough. I can help people. And that workshop was called, boldly titled, Build Your Online Business in a Weekend. And it was really about hands-on doing and actually getting things done. And it actually did work. It was the poor people who were there. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
It
But
was fun, though. It was fun.
it was fun, and people did walk away with their websites partially built and with their ideas about what their business strategies were going to be, and we helped each other out. It was all interactive, and so it was fun. So I would just say I waited too long to try that. If I were to do it, roll it back and do it again, I would say I probably should have tried that at least a year earlier than I did.
I recall one of the individuals you mentioned in your book, and one of my mentors that whose work I've looked up to used to say, or Lisa Sasevich would say, "Build the airplane as you fly it. Just do it, and you'll learn a lesson from it." And so that was definitely very wise words. Now I know in this day you're also active, you know, in the coaching community. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, Howard, you and I both belong to a group called the San Diego Professional Coaches Alliance. And this year and last year, I've been privileged to lead that group. And last year, with COVID coming through, we used to meet every month in person, and we switched that over to a virtual meeting. And so now, Howard, I know you live in Las Vegas, and I live in Oceanside, which is near San Diego. But we have members all over the country. We have members in New York and even in Canada. So anyway, it's so even though we call ourselves San Diego Professional Coaches Alliance, we actually are becoming international.
And I have to, for our listeners, when I did go out and help Tom 3-4 years ago with this event, it was because of that event that I learned about the San Diego Professional Coaches Alliance, and waking up and enjoying my coffee, watching the sunrise in San Diego Harbor was like, okay, I want this for the rest of my life. And so when I made my move from Chicago last July, Tom, Las Vegas actually was number 2 on the list. So it worked out. But San Diego's, if we ever go in person again, I will be there.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping, with the vaccine, and hopefully we'll be able to start gathering again. Who knows when? Maybe around the end of the year, early next year. I would love to see the San Diego Coaches Alliance maybe have a weekend event so people could travel and be with us.
I totally agree with that. And I think you're right. I mean, this type of an organization, if you and I can speak to coaches, anybody that's in a helping type profession where could be consultative, could be coaching, definitely check out the San Diego Professional Coaches Alliance, and we'll definitely provide the backlinks to their site on our show notes. Tom, we're going to definitely plan to have you come back onto the Success Insight podcast. How dare we not share the rest of this information with folks to help them not go down the same journey you and I have gone down, and let's get them online and march towards success a little bit sooner with better knowledge and better understanding of what it takes to grow a business and thrive and make a difference in the world. So look forward to having you back on the Success Insight podcast to do just that.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it, Howard. And you're right. Nobody should have to suffer years and years. That was really why I wrote the book. It's like I want people to get through this process in a year or two, not 6 or 7.
Fantastic. So, Tom, before we head out, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
Well, you can go to my website, which is choicedigitalstrategies.com. Yeah, and also I'm putting up basically a URL for my book. So that would be onlinebusinesssuccessbook.com. And I would encourage you to go there because by the time it's not there yet, I'm still working on it. But by the time this is broadcast, I'll have some extra bonuses for you. If you go there, you can sign up for the free bonuses that I have.
Fantastic. Now, you're also on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we'll provide the backlinks to those social sites as well. Tom, it's a pleasure to have you on Success Insight podcast. You were around when we were masterminding about the fruition of, this very podcast. And, you got busy with your work. I got busy with mine. And, just what better time to actually twist your arm and get you back on the podcast? So I appreciate that.
No, I love being here, Howard, and I appreciate you inviting me to be here. It's really a pleasure.
Fantastic. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Dr. Tom Teague, and as we have just shared, I mean, he spent a career helping corporations develop software, and this aha moment in his life, and he has shifted that to, helping thought leaders build and position themselves for online business success. And in fact, his book, Online Business Success for Thought Leaders, was recently published. And I've already twisted Tom's arm enough, and he's going to be coming back on to the show so we can kind of dive deeper for you in understanding what the steps to the online business success system, because this is important. And I remember in my coaching journey going back to school, and just because I had that certification as a coach, I still struggled in how to build my business and, who my ideal clients were, how I was going to support them, how I could introduce myself to them, and how I could run my business. And Tom has provided a wonderful roadmap in this book. And I'm so happy he's going to be coming back onto the podcast and share it with our listeners. All right, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. Do go out and check Tom's website, Choice Digital Strategies. Do visit his book, onlinebusinesssuccessbook.com, so you can see what specials he has to offer. And you could find us on our main webpage, successinsightpodcast.com. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn and the major podcasting platforms, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, as well as on YouTube. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Success Insight Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.